Hello everyone and welcome back to part 3 of the block clone project. So the models are all set up from the previous lecture and now it's time to actually use them to quickly create some forms. Since we already have that form .py file set up inside that blog application, and what we are also going to learn that we have not done before is how we can actually set up the form widgets to correspond to CSS classes. So what do I actually mean by that? Well, we have already seen something along the lines of injecting with a template tag form dot as underscore p, which just inject your forms as paragraph. And if you are actually using the bootstrap template that looks okay, it's just a standard bootstrap form where you kind of get everything from top to bottom using those as paragraph text. But what if you actually wants to style a particular widget? And remember, what I mean by widget is that actual form of widget. So something like a form button or the text area, text input, etc. What if for whatever reason I wanted to actually take the text area widget and give it a different styling? For example, give it that medium.com styling that we are going to be using later. Well, all you have to do is add a widgets attribute to the meta class and what this widget attribute is. It's actually a direct dictionary and you pass in some arguments or parameter into that dictionary that link the actual widget to the class. Later you can call in your CSS file, that class name, and it will affect that particular widget directly. So let's show you how to do all of this by hopping over to the editor. So here I am at the editor. There is 9 models that py file is ready to go here. Remember we have a post model and scrolling down we also have a comment model. That's what we are going to be using in the forms.py file that we have already created. So the first thing I need to do is say from Django import forms, and once we have done that I need to actually grab the models themselves. There is various ways you could do this. You could just say from the models uh, to me, I actually like having, you have heard me say before, the application name and then start calling files from that. So we'll say from blog models import, and then I am going to import the 2 models we created, which was the post model and the comments model. And then let's actually create those classes. So I will create the post from class, which is going to take forms model form. And then inside of this, I will have that meta class. And inside this meta class, what we need to do is actually connect the model we are using. In this case, I am using the post model, and then we want to also connect the fields that I want to be also to edit in this form. So we'll just edit the author field. So who's actually typing out this blog post? Theoretically, it would be the same person every time, but maybe we will have multiple super users. So it could be almost like a company blog where you have other super users coming in. So we'll keep author as a field you can edit. Then we definitely want to be able to edit the title of whatever blog post we are using, and of course we want to edit the text itself, and we'll talk about those widgets in just a second. But let's also edit the comment class, or I should say the comment form. So I will say comment form as my new class, and then we will say forms dot model form. And then what I am going to create here is meta. And inside of this, we will connect it to the comment model. So there is the connection to the comment model and then the fields here that this person is going to be able to edit. Well, they should be able to say who is writing the comment, the author, and then the actual text of the comment itself. And let me add in a couple more lines here. So we get some space and finally it's time to add in these widgets. So What I am going to do is add in the widgets first to the post form, and again this is so that I can grab a particular field widget. So let's say I want it to add a red border to the text area box that corresponds with text. Well, how would I do that? In that case, I need to actually add in widgets. So this goes inside of the meta class. So note my indentation here, and I create a widgets attribute that is a dictionary. And for formatting purposes, I will kind of write this over multiple lines, but the first key is going to respond to a field. So I will have title be a field, and then what I will have here is forms dot, then the widget actual name. So in this case, this is going to be a text input, and then we have the attributes which is going to be stress, and set that equal to class. We have a kind of sub dictionary and we have a class, then class text input class. So that's will be the first entry, and then the other one I want to be able to edit is the text. So this is how we are actually going to connect that text widget with those medium editor text area styling. So I will say forms dot text area. So that's sort of what I am doing is just the GN text area, and we will say address those attributes is equal to, and I will set it with a class. And then we are going to have kind of a long class name that is attributed to the actual medium library we are going to be working with. So later on, when we actually work with the JavaScript and CSS of that mod medium uh, library, we'll show you how I actually got this long class name. But for now, just copy or paste from the notes or follow along with me. But the classes we are going to pass here is the editable class. And then you can edit it. Then we'll pass in medium dash editor. Okay, text area. So that's the actual class that's going to allow us to connect it to some sort of medium editor. And then we are also going to do is add in our own class. So we'll say post content. So we are connecting this text area attribute, which is going to be our text in the blog post form, and it's going to be connected to a CSS class. In fact, it's connected to three CSS classes. First is the editable class. That means we can edit it, and that's coming from this medium editor library that we are going to be working with. Then we have the medium editor text area, which kind of gives it the styling of the actual medium editor. And then we have this post content, which is going to be our own class. So we are going the exact same thing over here for the title, except we are saying it's text input class. Again, that's our own class. So the only classes that are not ours are these two right here that I am highlighting. The classes that are ours is the text input class and then the post content class. Then we are going to scroll down and do a really similar thing for the comment form. So over here we are going to have a dictionary widgets, and I am going to set author the first dictionary entry to be forms dot. It's going to be text input widget, and it will have this attribute. That's going to be dictionary. We will have a connect to a class, and in this case I will have it just connect to the same text input class here. So we'll say text input class. So whatever CSS styling this title is going to have, the author will also have it here, since the they kind of serve the same purpose related to their actual form. Again, you could create your own class here if you wanted to. If you wanted to add some specific styling elements to the author form box of the comment themselves. And then more importantly, the actual text, we want to connect this to forms text area. And in fact, this is actually going to be the exact same thing as that's up here, this post content. So I'm going to copy and paste this. Let me collapse my disk directory cheat tree so you can see everything, and then I'm going to copy and paste it here, and then I am going to delete this post content. So that post content class, I will make sure that class is only suitable for the post forms versus here. I'm just going to have it kind of be the default medium editor class. So those are my two widgets, and this is the main idea of how you can connect specific widgets to CSS styling. Again, the main idea is just you have widgets. It's a dictionary attribute inside of that meta class. You have the actual field. You will see forms dot the actual type of widget it's going to be. And then you set attributes where you have a class key and then the name of the class that eventually will go inside your CSS. So since we are talking a little bit about CSS, let's set up the most basic CSS, which means we probably want to set up a static folder. So I will kind of open up my directory tree here. And this is going to be go underneath right here. We see blog project and then we also see my site. A lot of times what we have done in the past is have the static folder line up with the same directory as my site and blog, but when we are talking about advanced class-based views, we also discussed having template and static folder inside of the actual application folder. So that's the kind of following we are going to do here, since that's a little more common in the real world and doesn't line up exactly with the tutorials of the Django documentation. But a lot of times in the real world, each particular application is going to come with its own set of static directories and template directories, which kind of makes sense if you want these applications to be more plug and play that way. In case you ever want to have some sort of blog application, you can quickly grab everything from this previous project and insert it or inject it into another much larger project. So we are going to do is inside of this blog folder, I'm going to create a new directory. So we'll say new folder, and this folder is going to be called static. And inside of this static folder, I will create two new folders. So I will have a folder for my CSS, and instead of static, I will also have a folder for my JavaScript, and we will call that uh, and inside of CSS, what we are going to do is we are not going to mess with it right now, but we will set up the file that we will using. So we will say new file, and we'll just call it blog.css, and we'll be working a lot more with the CSS towards the end. But right now we'll just keep it blank, but make sure that the static files are all there. And since we are adding the static directory, it's a good idea to come over to the settings.py file and make sure the static is all set up down there. So let's come over to my site settings.py, scroll all the way down because usually that's where we are going to put all that static stuff. So all the way down here I have static. That's totally fine, and we do have it under a folder name static. But what I'm going to do here, say static underscore root is equal to OS. dot path dot join, and I will join the base directory with the static folder that way knows where to look for stuff. And then what I am also going to do is create those template folders or directories. We have not actually created any templates yet, but we will soon. And since we are messing around with the settings.py file, might as well do it all now. So at the same level of the static underneath blog, I will right click, create a new folder, and I will call this templates. And then inside of this templates, let's have a two directories. I will have a few folder that share the same names as the application. And remember we talked about this in class based views where this templates folder goes underneath the application. Underneath that you have the application name. Again, a little repetitive, but that's usually what we see in the real world. And I am going to create a new folder here and we will call this registration. And when we actually begin dealing with registering user and authorization, we will dealing with a little template there, some sort of login page template. But since we have the template set up, might as well take care of that as well. So what I'm going to do is I like doing this at this top. You can really do this anywhere you want in the settings.py file. But just to kind of keep in line with that what we have doing, I will create the template dir here and I will say uh, that join pass in the base directory, and what I have to do here is actually pointed to the templates we are using. So I will be using blog templates blog. Okay, save that, and then scrolling down here, past installed apps, past middleware, here is the template. Remember, this can take a list of directories while we only have one template, but if we had another application we could be passing these as well. But in this case I will just pass in template underscore dir, and that's all there is to it. So now I save this and we have some settings.py file. Now we are not completely done with the settings.py file. Later on when we actually talk about logins, we'll need to do a little editing here. So I will add this in right now. So scrolling all the way down, and we kind of talked a little bit about this during the authorization lectures, but we need a login underscore redirect underscore your URL is equal to, and we are just going to in quotes put a single forward slash. That way we have some sort of redirection to the home page once the page is done logging in, and we are going to talk a lot more about users logging in and all that stuff when we actually get to that. But so far, the main idea of this lecture, besides setting up the settings.py file little further, was taking care of this forms.py file. So again, two main things we did here, setting up the forms.py file, learning how to actually use these widgets in order to attribute CSS classes to particular widgets. And then we did a little more in the settings.py file and set up our static and template folders. That's it for this lecture.